Welcome to Becoming a Principal, a podcast for aspiring educational leaders. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Matt. We are high school administrators in Ontario, Canada, and we are excited to share our experiences with you. This podcast is designed to provide inspiration and support for educators considering leadership roles. We plan to discuss a range of topics related to educational leadership to help you on your journey to become and thrive as a school leader.
How you doing today, Matt?
Here we go, eh?
Here we go.
You know what? We were just sharing. I haven't even drank my coffee yet today.
Wow.
It's been a busy day, which is fine. It's been a busy day.
I think I've had too many, so I'm a little. I think I'm on the come down of all that caffeine.
There you go.
Yeah.
We're on opposite ends, but we're ready for this.
That's right.
This is the good part of the day that we get to mess around in here.
It's the best, right? Yeah. We get to kind of reflect a little bit on some of the things that we've been up to, right? It's been we've been pretty busy, you would say.
Yeah, it was a busy week.
Yeah, it was a busy week. But you know what? What busy does, it offers a lot to reflect on.
No, I like
right?
that.
No shortage of things to reflect on, is there?
That's true.
No, we could take little snippets from the week and reflect for hours, I think, right?
Oh, I think
we
so.
had enough to nibble on.
Yeah. Hey, where do you do a lot of your reflection? Why don't we go there right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. Good question. I'm not saying that no more. Anytime there's just some quiet.
Yeah.
I feel like, I'm trying my best to kind of pick the biggest parts of the day that I need to reflect on and try and take some time to intentionally reflect on those. But there's some things that have gone by the wayside, for sure. Like, there's a lot of smaller things that happen in the day, I think, sometimes, where it probably needs a bit of time to reflect, but we're just working on some higher level stuff sometimes that really necessitates reflection. So I think I'm missing some things when we get the volume going way up. What do you think?
Oh, I miss things too, for sure.
Yeah.
You're just in the moment and you're just going from one thing to the next. But yeah, the reflection piece is important. I get a lot of it on the drive home and when I walk my dog. It's hard for me to, I try to listen to a podcast or music or whatever, and I just find my mind goes and reflects for a bit. But then actually by the time I'm home, I'm settled in.
So what you're saying
I've cleared it up.
So what you're saying is I should make my commute a little longer.
And you need
get
a dog.
Okay.
There you go. Done.
Yeah. All right.
I'll
let my family know.
Okay.
We're gonna move, and then we're getting a dog. See how that goes.
Perfect.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Today we're gonna talk a little bit about an article that Matt and I have kind of been back and forth on over the last few months, and how it relates to our current practice and leadership. And that is an article that was in Harvard Business Review titled "Every Leader Needs to Navigate These 7 Tensions." It's a fantastic article. If you get a chance to read it in its entirety, please do so. You can just Google it and find it that way. Today we're not going to talk about all 7 or comment on all 7 tensions, but we've kind of identified 3 that we feel are very present in our current leadership tensions that we're navigating as new leaders in school. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the idea of the tension between the constant versus the adapter. So the article states that the traditional approach to leadership values decision-making, conviction, and consistency. So basically, good leaders stick to their guns. By contrast, the emerging approach recognizes that in fast-changing environments, decisions often need to be reversed or adapted, and that changing course in response to new information is a strength, not a weakness. If this tension, it says, is not managed wisely, leaders run the risk of seeming too rigid on the one hand or too wishy-washy on the other. So, Matt, what do you think about the tension between being the constant, so always sticking to your guns, versus being the adapter? How's that present in your leadership?
That is a good intro there. I would say in an education context, I think about school improvement planning, and I have 2 stories to tell. One a little older and one quite recent, actually. But when I was program head of math, I remember going to a conference and just learning a few pieces that could really, I think, help improve student achievement in some of our classes, I would say, especially grade 9 and 10. And when I brought that back to the department the next day, they're pretty angry at me, actually, because we've gone through a lot of growth, and I'm the type of person that I'm ready to just start over and, get some new information and let's just run with it. But I am, at that time, I wasn't paying attention to the other teachers in the department and what they needed, and that was not the right time for them, right? And especially because we had been through some change already. And I think that was a bad leadership move on my part to go in there and say, hey, you know what? We're going to go in, we're doing this thing now. It's going to really help our students. And I laid the groundwork for that. And people were like, we knew you were going to do this. We knew you were going to come back to us and say we were doing something else and going in a different direction. And that's not okay. And at the time, I was pretty upset about it. But I reflected after. And I was like, you know what? That wasn't a good move by me. Number one, I made that decision on my own, right? But number two, the people weren't ready for it either.
It's a great point about making a decision on your own and then bring it back to the group so you're not maybe getting the buy-in there. But very interesting how you are the adapter. Like you're fine to do that.
Yep,
but,
all the time.
But part of leading is maybe recognizing if your team likes the constant or the adapter, right?
That's right. And I was talking to another administrator last week about that same thing, and even talking about school improvement planning, and they were talking about you have to have some year-over-year consistency too. You know, you have to give people the time to dig in and learn with it, because if you're just willing to go quickly change, think about how many people you're actually impacting.
That's right. Through
that. Not everyone's ready to jump on board with you right away. You're going to leave people behind too if you're doing that. And you know, this person also made that mistake earlier in their career as a elementary school principal, and they were saying that, you know, they started to realize for themselves that they really needed to gauge where the staff is at before they start to make them adapt or push them into a different direction.
It's a great point. I think recognizing too, like, what people need from you in any given time as well. Like you said, like they weren't maybe ready for it, or they knew that you were going to come back as the adapter because they know who you are as a leader.
Yeah, that's a bad sign. Yeah.
Right? They already knew. Yep. So like, how do you determine like when you got to be the constant and when you need to be the adapter, especially knowing your lean, like your angle? I think is very important because, you know, I think probably all of us in leadership are more inclined to go one way or the other on that.
Yeah, so I'm happy I went through that, though. That actually was a great learning experience for me. And now I try to keep that in the back of my mind when I'm thinking about who's ready for change or what kind of change are they ready for or how much we can push people, because we know there's some people who are not going to be ready to move on.
Yeah, and there's sometimes only so much you can manage, too. Like, we got to remember that people work hard to come up with plans and whatever, maybe assessments like you said, or ideas or lessons, and then to come back one day and say like, well, we're going to go this direction.
Yeah, that's not
That's a lot of time, right? And I think people do appreciate having some consistency too. Yep. So that's absolutely a tension that we face. I think we face it very often.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
When also you're steering this big ship, you know, thinking about how many teachers are at our school.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get everyone on the same page, and that takes a long time to get everyone on the same page.
Absolutely.
Right? So once you get people there, it's a slow turn.
For sure it is. And not everyone's going to go at the same pace.
That's right.
Right? And I think like you just said, it's a big ship, but people do want to see that like you're working towards something. Mm-hmm. And there does need to be some element of consistency, or people might think, what's this guy doing?
Yeah, and I do think you lose some credibility then too.
If you're always moving.
Right, if you're always moving. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's a good one.
Okay, so let's look at another one, the tactician versus the visionary. So in the article, they describe this traditional approach to leadership calls for the operational clarity and well-defined plans. The emerging approach suggests that leaders require a clear vision for where they want to go without necessarily needing a concrete roadmap for how to get there. If this tension isn't managed wisely, leaders run the risk of providing no North Star for their team members. On the other hand, if they're not grounded in reality, they may serve up lofty, unrealistic, or intangible goals. So Jordan, where have you seen this pop up in your practice?
Yeah, I think about this one a lot because I think a lot of us, when we are teachers, we are very much tacticians in terms of how we operate, because there's so many things procedurally that we have to kind of do, sequence, protocol, all that sort of stuff. But then there's also this side of you that like needs to have the end goal in mind and maybe not focus so much on the tactics, like and to kind of lift your head up from being so immersed in the doing of the thing to find out, like, are we actually headed in the right direction? And I think that speaks to me in terms of the visionary. And our roles as school leaders, we definitely need to understand both sides of that. But if I'm going to be honest with you, I feel we really need to lean sometimes more towards the visionary side of things, because we do have a lot of sort of tacticians working on some of the logistics of how things get done. But if we aren't providing that North Star, what is that is the foundation that things should be built, right? And my personal lean is that, there's a lot of ways to get to arrive to a certain destination, right? But what is the destination you're trying to get to? To me, I always think, what are we really trying to achieve? What's the purpose here? Why are we doing what we're doing? We got to scrutinize why we're doing it. I am very much less concerned about the how. However, I recognize that there are people that are very much concerned about the how, and that impacts their job greatly, how we might roll something out. So I might just say, we need to get to here. How are we all going to get to here? And some people want that roadmap very clearly defined. I was never a person that needed that, but I recognize that people need that. So I'm appreciating more now how we arrive to that roadmap that some of our people need, right? But I don't know how we make a roadmap without knowing where we're going. So for me, the visionary part, it speaks to me, and I felt when I've been under leadership that had the visionary kind of side clearly defined, it was easier for me to come up with like tactics or strategies to get there. Not if that makes any sense to you at all, but how do you see that playing out for yourself, like in even like say like a classroom or like a program headship, being the visionary versus being the tactician? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like you're saying, right now as a school administrator, you're more the forest person, right? You have that zoomed out view, and like for you, who are those people that you lean on in the school to provide that roadmap?
Yeah, that's a great point. So I'm glad you brought that up, because there are things where I know where we need to get to, because it's like in part of our North Star, we should also say like sometimes it's defined for us. It's not like a personal North Star. It's a board vision or mission that we know we need to get to. But who's actually going to be carrying out the works to get to that vision is people we need to engage in making the roadmap, right? Like, I'm thinking something like, our attendance protocol or whatever. If it's just us, we're not the ones on the front lines of that, how that actually works.
That's right.
So finding out who is on the front lines of how that works, and they can help create a roadmap, because they're going to be living it every day. So are they good with what the roadmap they created? Because sometimes we create a roadmap from too high of a seat, and we actually maybe didn't engage people that are going to do the thing we are creating. And that's where you can get some frustration or some breakdown in communication, maybe less buy-in as well, right? So I think working with people that are actually going to be doing the thing, that's a great place to start. What do you think?
No, absolutely. You have to get buy-in from them. And like you said, we might have the vision for it, and we might know what needs to happen.
That's right.
But we need other people to do it.
I can give you a little example, like when I'm thinking, obviously very basic, small procedural things, but when we're engaging people with, our uniform policy, for example, people that get referred to the main office, right? I know last year we talked about, like, what does that look like? What should that sound like? What should the response be from the main office? And the first person they see is our receptionist at the front desk. What does that process look like for them? So to engage that person on like what they kind of need to create the correct response, and what is the goal of the school, so that they can actually come up with appropriate response to the student and move things forward. Like, we engage them in that conversation. Like, what is this going to look like for you? What do you think makes sense here? Because they're on the front lines of it. Oftentimes we're busy. We might be in closed door meetings. As much as we say we're present and available, there are times we're not, right? And we need those people to really hold it down for us. So engaging them in those little things is super important, because they know a lot about how it's going to plan out.
That's right.
So engaging them, and that's something very, very small, but there are tons of those things that happen in the school, that there's certain people out on the front lines of it, and they need a big say in how that works. And when they do have a say, I find that they are more likely to either change course if they need to, because they've already been invested in the initial idea of it, and they're more likely to carry it out because they came up with it. What do you think?
Yeah, well said. Yeah, we see that play out every day. And those different things, those different moments and how people operate and interact. And like you said, it is those things do affect their job, right? What we're asking
time.
people to do.
Big
It
time.
doesn't really impact us necessarily, but it impacts a lot of other people.
Absolutely.
So we need to be cognizant of that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, so moving on to the next tension that we're going to discuss. It's the perfectionist versus the accelerator. The traditional approach asserts that leaders should take the time to deliver a perfectly finished product. The emerging approach calls for leaders to acknowledge that doing something quickly and failing fast is often more important than doing it perfectly. If not managed wisely, leaders run the risk of delaying the launch of key initiatives and directives due to a fear of imperfection. Conversely, bringing initiatives forward without ample consideration and testing can lead to embarrassing results. How have you kind of felt or even experienced this tension of perfectionist versus accelerator, Matt?
Okay. So, the first thing I'm thinking about is my buddy James Clear, and some of the things that I read from him.
He's your buddy?
I wish, right? I feel like I know him a little bit though, and it's really about getting started is the beginning of finishing it off, right? So the longer you try to come up with, a perfectly defined message or that clear roadmap that we were talking about earlier, I think the less likely you're going to get finished, right? However, on the flip side, okay, so that's more my mode. Like,
Yes.
let's just get started and just go. I'm more like you. The roadmap, it's not always important to me, which, I recognize is maybe a bit of a problem at times. And one of the ways it's a bit of a problem is when I want to get started, sometimes I'm clearing or I'm becoming more clear on my own messaging about the initiative that I want to do or the whatever communication I'm making. And there is a communication gap, I would say. And I don't think it's great that I have to redefine or, spend time trying to clear or clarify the direction that we're going or clarify the message, because I think that's when it becomes a problem. So just making the time to ensure that in my mind the direction is clear and the messaging is clear, and then getting started would be the way to go, rather than worrying about all the other pieces, knowing the end point, but like getting started, because it's got to get finished.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, we talked about it before, but we're like people of hope. We have faith. And I lean into that a lot in terms of hitting the accelerator button instead of being a perfectionist, right? I think perfectionist for me, in the times that I've done that and I've been like scared to publish or scared to share, scared to hit send, there's something that in that is making me, I'm like procrastinating. I'm like delaying. I worry about I almost like you worry too much about how it might be received, and then you get so hung up on it you don't actually get moving. Yeah. Sometimes I've been there before, and I've gone the opposite way of like just hitting the accelerator pretty hard, which in the end for me has felt like it was the right move, because I used to probably be a bit more of a perfectionist and lean into that because I was afraid to do something that wasn't perfect and polished. But at the end, I was really ended up doing nothing because I never really got started.
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot of tension in this because it's not like we're connected with all of our educators every day.
That's
so
right.
We have 10 months of our school year, so we meet educators 10 times.
Yeah.
As a whole staff.
Yes.
Right, throughout the year.
So true.
So time is really of the essence.
Yeah.
So when is the right time to get started? It's not November, right? We're already wasted a quarter of the year is the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And there's not always a lot of time to define, again, like that roadmap, define what's the clear message going to be, that polished message. So if we're trying to get something going, we need to get going.
Yeah.
Right?
It's so true. Yeah, I think this is an age-old tension that people probably do have, right? But the other side of that is that you've got people that, especially maybe if you're not like, as you start to gain confidence in the job and who you are as a leader and feeling like kind of like your authentic self in your new role or even, established role, I think that you've kind of put by the wayside of what people might think of you if your message isn't perfect too. And I think some new leaders can get hung up on thinking that they have to have everything tickety-boo and ready to go, and so there's no holes in their game, so people aren't losing confidence in them. because it's not perfect. And I think that can create a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Like to feel you got to be so polished because people are going to be judging you. At the end of the day, our job is to move people forward, right? And it's not always going to be clean. And it's like if you, in my mind, like I'm never going to be perfect. So that's why I maybe stop trying to be. And that actually I think is helped, because I think people do suffer from trying to have it appear like they got it all. And every time they publish something, it's perfect, right? Or put something out. So I don't know if have you ever had that like little anxiety before you hit send?
Oh, all the time.
The all users, boom.
Yeah, you know what though? Like, okay, so second year in as an administrator.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about that the same way anymore.
Me either.
Right?
Yeah, I used to really go through it all, like, what if someone thinks that or this or this, even my spelling or my grammar, I'm like, whatever. This is the best I got right now. Give it a once-over scan. And then if I have to revise, if someone catches something, just show a little humility and say, whoops, I made a mistake. It happened today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent an email about a survey that's supposed to be done in class, and I said, read the attached memo, and it was the wrong one. But then, I just fixed it. Right? Isn't that what you do?
There you go. It happens.
That's right.
It
happens. I mean, I could have done better with that, but I was pretty quick on the trigger. But I think people do get that anxiety when they're about to hit, that all users button. If you got a lot of people in your organization, yeah. Do you think some people don't have that anxiety at all?
I think you should have a little bit.
Yeah, right.
I'm just gonna leave it like that. I think you should have a little anxiety just to make sure that, like, you again, like you said,
yeah, that
you do the scan,
That's
you do
right.
the once over, and before you hit send.
A little bit discerning.
Yeah,
before you
a
hit
little
send.
bit. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So just to put a bow on this, like what we're talking about, these tensions. I've been reflecting as we've been talking about these three, and I'm just thinking to myself, it's probably good to live in both worlds. You might have a lean, like you're kind of alluding to earlier, one way or the other, but you can't be all the way in on one thing in order to be a leader in a school. You have to be in both worlds.
I think you have to acknowledge that they exist.
Yeah.
And understand that people need a bit of both.
Yeah. And people you're leading need a bit of both.
Leading.
That's right.
People you're leading need it. And you can also have, I think, depending on the organization, potentially have someone who's further one way than the other. If the rest of the team kind of rounds it out, that can also work as functioning as a unit. But yeah, I think as a leader, you really need to know, like, you can't, if you're all in on one, you're going to suffer. So this article is, aptly titled. It's a tension, right? Tension of leadership that people do have to navigate, right? They're being pulled.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thank you to our listeners
There you go.
for tuning in to Becoming a Principal. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. We'll be back next week with more stories and advice from the world of school leadership. Until then, keep striving and inspiring.